Good morning, Dr. Fowler, and thank you for allowing me to be here once again with Cal Allen ISD to give the series of presentations. So today's presentation will be coping skills to manage anxiety. And today we're going to explore, this is just an overview of what we'll be reviewing today. So today we will explore stress and anxiety, what they are, how they show up in our bodies and minds, and how they affect our daily lives. We'll also look at some common reactions to stress and anxiety, review the biological and physiological responses that happen when we're under pressure, and discuss practical coping strategies to manage these feelings. Along the way, we'll also touch briefly on how ongoing stress and anxiety can sometimes affect mood, so you can be aware of the signs of low energy or sadness. And finally, we'll review helpful resources that can support both parents and children. So let's start out by talking about what is stress. Stress is how we react when we feel under pressure or threatened. It usually happens when we are in a situation that we don't feel we can manage or control. When we are under stress, we may feel tense, nervous, or on edge. And these stress responses can also be physical. As a result, when you are nervous or stressed, you might feel your heartbeat or breathing get faster, your palms get sweaty, or your knees get shaky. Some of the most common symptoms of stress include headaches, irritability, and exhaustion. Headaches can come from your blood pressure rising, during a stressful situation, and irritability often comes from being exhausted. Often individuals experience stress and are unable to cope with it. This then leads them to become easily frustrated or annoyed, causing them to lash out at others. Their irritability can be dismissed as hyperactive hormones, when in reality, it stems from them experiencing an overwhelming amount of stress. So, now let's look at what is anxiety. So, anxiety is our body's natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. The first day of school, going to a job interview, or giving a speech may cause most people to feel fearful or nervous. All of us experience some amount of anxiety at times, and anxiety is normal or is a normal reaction to stress. And sometimes helps us to deal with tense or overwhelming situations. For many, things like public speaking, final exams, working on a deadline for a report, can cause feelings of apprehension and uneasiness. The most common symptoms of anxiety include, again, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, trembling, excessive sweating, and feeling nervous. And that's how our brain responds to anxious feelings. For some, however, anxiety can go beyond these typical symptoms to negatively affect friendships, family relationships, and participation in extracurricular activities. Um, all these symptoms combined can cause exhaustion and irritability in both teens and adults. And anxiety takes a toll on our mental health at times. It can make it difficult to either concentrate or process new information. The main reason for this is because individuals tend to focus on their intense worry or fear rather than focusing in on other things. However, with proper help and with the use of positive coping skills, anxiety can be managed. Anxiety doesn't just go away on its own. We must learn to deal with the underlying cause. That's why it's so important for us to know the common causes of anxiety so that we can learn how to manage anxiety symptoms. And I do want to note that anxiety and depression often appear together. Some strategies that help anxiety, like maintaining routines, practicing self-care, and seeking support, can also support mood. So let's discuss how we can determine what is normal stress versus anxiety. There's a fine line between stress and anxiety. Both are emotional responses, but stress is typically caused by an external trigger. So, stress generally is a response to an external cause, such as taking a big test or arguing with a friend. Stress usually goes away once the situation is resolved. Stress can be positive or negative. For example, it may encourage you, to meet a deadline, or it may cause you to lose sleep. Both stress and anxiety can affect your mind and body. You may experience symptoms such as excessive worry, uneasiness, tension, headaches or body pains, high blood pressure, and even loss of sleep. Now, anxiety is generally internal, so meaning it's your reaction to stress. Anxiety usually involves having a persistent feeling of apprehension or dread that doesn't go away and that interferes with how you live your life or go about your daily routines. It is constant and continuous, even if there's no immediate threat. An individual doesn't need a specific trigger for anxiety to appear. Anxiety can come and go, um, like waves. Although anxiety can be managed, it takes a little bit more effort and practice to reduce anxiety levels. And sometimes when anxiety or stress are ongoing, people may notice low mood or sadness, loss of interest in activities they used to enjoy, and recognizing these signs early can help get support before things feel even heavier or get worse. So, since anxiety and stress share similar symptoms, they also share similar reactions, to the body. Stress and anxiety can cause low energy, health issues, and emotional distress. Low energy can stem from being mentally or emotionally drained by stress and anxiety. Health issues tend to arise with stress because when you are stressed, your blood pressure goes up and you may experience sleep issues, which can lower your immune system. Anxiety can also lower your immune system and cause heart problems due to excessive worry. And all these reactions listed can affect your body physically, biologically, and emotionally. Stress can make you feel anxious, afraid, um, angry or aggressive, sad, irritable, frustrated, depressed. And these feelings can sometimes produce physical symptoms, making you feel even worse. So let's look at how stress can affect your behavior. If you're stressed, you may start to withdraw from other people or snap at them, be indecisive, have a hard time making decisions, or inflexible, unwilling to change or compromise. You may be more tearful, have problems going or getting to sleep or staying asleep. Stress can also affect you physically. You may experience headaches, nausea, indigestion, shallow breathing or hyperventilating, sweating, heart palpitations, and different aches and pains throughout the body. If stress is long lasting, you may notice your sleep and memory are affected. your eating habits change, or you feel less motivated to exercise or to go outside or to engage in those activities that you once enjoyed. With anxiety, while some individuals express feelings of pervasive worry, others experience subtle emotional changes, such as feeling keyed up all the time or feeling on edge, being irritable, without any cause or reason, having a difficult time concentrating, being restless, or just kind of unexplained outbursts. Some social changes that may occur with anxiety. Um, Anxiety can negatively affect friendships and relationships. If a once social individual suddenly starts to avoid their favorite activities or stop making plans with friends or starts to avoid social interactions with usual friends, that could be a sign of anxiety. So, again, avoiding extracurricular activities, isolating from their peer groups, or starting to spend increased time alone can be, signs that something is going on. And this is also something to take note of. Many of the physical complaints that occur with anxiety can mimic regular complaints. So you want to pay special attention to patterns. A couple of headaches here and there shouldn't be a cause of concern, but frequent headaches are a red flag. Watch for these common complaints which can be associated with anxiety. Frequent headaches, including migraines, gastrointestinal problems, unexplained aches and pains, excessive fatigue, complaints of not feeling well with no obvious medical cause, changes in eating habits. You also want to look out for sleep disturbances. So, difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, someone having frequent nightmares or not feeling, quite refreshed after a sleep. Poor school or work performance. Given that anxiety can affect everything from sleep, physical issues, it should come as no surprise that poor academic or work performance can also result from untreated anxiety. School or work avoidance, missed days due to anxiety related illnesses, and persistent worry can make it difficult for anxious individuals to keep up with their workload. So watch out for these changes in yours or your loved one. A significant jump in grades, usually downwards, frequently missing assignments, describes feeling overwhelmed by their workload, procrastinates on or has difficulty concentrating on assignments more than usual. And, again, this happens to, each one of us from time to time. But the main thing to focus on and to look for is like patterns that are extending over long periods of time. And I want to talk um, briefly about panic attacks. Not all anxious individuals experience panic attacks, and some experience mild symptoms of panic without enduring a full on panic attack. So the following symptoms can be common among people with anxiety disorders. A rapid heartbeat, the sweating and trembling, dizziness, upset stomach, difficulty breathing, having chest pains, feeling like they're dying, or having that feeling that they're, like they're dying, feeling like they're going crazy, numbness or tingling in their arms and legs, and a sense of deregulation. So, excuse me. What happens when we feel stressed? So, stress and anxiety are more than just feelings when we feel anxious or our mind and body goes through a complex series of events, preparing us for the perceived threat. So, underneath the feelings of stress and anxiety are many emotional, biological, and psychological stimuli that our mind perceives as a threat. From there, our brain reacts to telling our bodies to release hormones, preparing us to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the fight and flight responses. However, the freeze or fawn reactions are just as common, and I will discuss those in more detail during the next slide. So, after the hormones are released, our bodies experience dizziness, nausea, muscle tension, increased heart rate. So, while we might want to tell our minds, ignore it, you're safe, there's nothing to worry about here, the fact is that our bodies and brain have already reacted to this cycle, making anxiety and stress difficult to combat. So, this next slide, as I mentioned, once our brains perceive a threat, it tells our body to prepare to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And sometimes we are not even aware that this reaction is happening. For example, a common flight response is perfectionism. This idea that if I can just be perfect, I can escape whatever is stressing me. Another example of a common freeze response is an inability to make decisions. Many of these reactions go unnoticed, or we tell ourselves that this is just how we are when they are usually stress or anxiety responses. Now, the fawn response is a little bit more confusing. You know, um, have you ever been unable to say no? When asked to take on more expectations or responsibilities? Have you ever given a lot of time and attention to someone or something, hoping that you'll get the same response back? Have you ever said, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, so you don't set someone or something off? And those are fawn responses. When you bypass your own needs or identity. Also, it's important to mention that people usually experience all of these responses depending on the stimulus or the stimuli. People usually don't just fight or just fawn. It's a combination, um, of any one of these four responses. So the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn reactions are designed to keep us safe. When these responses are triggered repeatedly, our bodies and our minds can feel drained, which sometimes shows up as low mood. And recognizing this helps us to take small steps to care for ourselves. So I want to also talk to you a little bit about recognizing burnout, the signs and symptoms. Some physical signs are feeling drained or exhausted from ongoing stress, getting sick more often than usual, the body and appetite. Some emotional signs of burnout, can be feeling anxious or overwhelmed or trapped, a sense of failure or having self-doubt, loss of motivation or enjoyment in activities, a decrease in satisfaction in work, parenting, or daily lives. Some behavioral signs of burnout is withdrawing or isolating from others, procrastinating or avoiding tasks, taking frustration out on others. Burnout can arise when stress and anxiety are constant Over time, this can sometimes affect mood, leaving you feeling low or less energized. And recognizing these early signs allows you to take small, effective steps towards self care and support. And now I want to talk just a little bit about distraction. When we are feeling stressed or anxious, we try to do things that help calm us down. It is recommended that we do things that relax our bodies rather than things that distract us from our problems. Distraction is a thing that prevents someone from giving their full attention to something else, while relaxation is the state of being free from tension and anxiety. A lot of individuals will turn to social media or shows to help relieve stress, which isn't a bad thing. However, if you are watching shows or videos that are anxiety or stress inducing, then you are using a distraction method rather than a relaxation method. In the moment, you are forgetting the thing that is causing your anxiety or stress. However, since you are engaging in activities that are increasing those symptoms, then after you're done watching your show or videos, then more than likely you'll start to worry about your problems quickly after because your body wasn't able to relax during that time. So, in order for our bodies to relax, you need to utilize methods that reduce anxiety and stress levels. And these methods can include reading a book, having a spa day at home, or doing some meditation. Anything that helps reduce anxiety and stress levels is a relaxation method. So, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, great, but what can I do to help myself? I've compiled some simple, proven coping skills that everyone can do anywhere. Also, these skills can be personalized to fit your needs. The first, it's breathing. I'm sure you've all been told to take deep breaths to calm yourself down. And yes, that absolutely works. However, it is important to know how to breathe properly. For example, most deep breaths look like this, which, with my chest inhaling and maybe my shoulders moving up a bit, that actually makes us more anxious, as those breaths are shallow. Instead, it is important to breathe from your diaphragm. I will show you a video on diaphragmic breathing. You will put your hand on your belly. Think of inflating a balloon and pushing your stomach out as you inhale. You will notice the difference. Breathing from your diaphragm allows you to slow your breathing, your heart rate, and maximize your oxygen intake. And it takes practice, but it is worth it. So once you master breathing from your diaphragm, this is a helpful pattern to use. I like to call it, or they call it, box breathing because of its shape. You can see that you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for four. And this systematic pattern, coupled with diaphragmic breathing, slows your body's reaction to the stress and helps balance your brain. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a great strategy that can be done pretty much anywhere. So I found this video as I was preparing for this presentation, and I thought that it was a good guide and visual to give you an idea of how diaphragmic breathing works and how to do it. So I'm going to play it here a little bit, and as you're listening to the video, just remember, the box breathing, the 4, 4, 4, and 4.
Belly breathing, or the diaphragmatic breath, is a technique used in almost all relaxation techniques. By breathing into the stomach, this signals a response in our body to relax and to calm down. I will note that we aren't actually breathing into the stomach. We're expanding the diaphragm, which pushes down and causes the stomach to naturally rise outwards. We'll be breathing down into the belly. Exhale, we're breathing out through the mouth, drawing the belly inwards. Let's try this breath together and see if you can breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly, really feeling that expanding and contracting of the stomach. If you're new to this exercise, lying down is a great position to start in. So we'll just begin by noticing the breath and gently observing each inhale and each exhale. And then bringing the focus to the stomach, resting a hand on the stomach if that's helpful, and just breathing in slowly down into the belly. And then exhaling out through the mouth. Again, breathing in through the nose, filling the belly. And then letting everything go out through the mouth. One last time, breathing in, filling the lungs and expanding the belly. And then exhaling, letting everything go out through the mouth. Belly breathing is so simple, and that's why I love it. You can do it whenever you want for however long you need. It can be really helpful in redirecting your thoughts, or also when you need to take a mindful break. I like to use this at the beginning of my sitting meditation practice, taking 5 or 10 deep breaths before I settle in. And you can really feel the mind starting to slow down with each and every breath.
Okay, so, coping skills such as grounding and breathing helps with anxiety and stress by calming. It slows racing thoughts, it calms the nervous system, and it brings focus back to the present. And there are subtle benefits for mood as well. It can help lift your energy slightly or ease low feelings. It supports emotional balance and small movements of relief. And, practicing breathing techniques or exercises, even a few minutes a day can help you feel more in control of your thoughts and emotions, whether you're stressed, anxious, or feeling a bit low. So, another great way to shift your brain from that emotional right to logical left is grounding yourself. As I've mentioned, when you feel stress, it is easy to lose ourselves focusing only on the stressor. If you find yourself doing this, you should pause and take a moment to ground yourself. And here is a simple way, you know, um, to do it. First, what are the 5 things you can see around you? These do not need to be important or noteworthy. It could be the sight of a computer, it could be a pen, it could be a coffee mug. Next, what are the 4 things you can feel? For example, I can feel my shirt or sweater, touching my neck, the socks on my feet, the desk under my arms. Then work through things that you can hear, smell, and taste. Again, this systematic approach allows your brain to balance out, couple this with the diaphragmatic breathing, and your body and mind can fully relax. Also, I should mention that you might think you cannot taste or smell anything, but if you really focus, you should be able to find something that you can taste or smell. And if you still focus and you still can't, sometimes it's helpful to think about, your favorite foods and, how do they taste? What's the smell of that favorite food? And safe places. This is one of my favorite coping skills. It is similar to meditation, but more personalized. I want you to imagine a place where you feel safe. It can be real, it can be imaginary, it can be near, it can be far. A place where or a place where you've only seen pictures of, a place you've been, a place you wish was real. With your eyes either open or closed, um, strictly up to you, your choice. Imagine that place in as much detail as you can. What can you see? What can you hear? What do you smell or taste? What do you feel? What are you wearing in this place? Are you eating or drinking anything? Do you have anything with you? Is a person with you? Allow yourself to vividly imagine that you are in that safe place and stay there as long as you need to. Again, practice that diaphragmatic breathing and you should feel yourself calming. I added a few examples of common safe places. Many people love the beach, the sound of the waves, the smell of the salt, the feel of the sun and sand. Um, Maybe that's your safe place, or a dark, rainy, chilly forest. For others, maybe their safe place might be their bedroom or their grandparents' house. After you've fully flushed out the safe place in your mind, it becomes easier to go there when you're feeling stressed. And if you can play music or nature sounds as you imagine your safe place, it really helps you to get there mentally. And some other coping strategies can include getting creative. If you are someone who likes to draw or paint, then you can let out all of your anxiety and stress through your art. If you are someone who likes to sing or dance, then you can allow yourself to feel free. You can sway to the music or sing your heart out, whichever you feel more comfortable with. I know some people like to play their instruments and let out their frustrations through their music. You can do all sorts of creative things, and creativity looks different to everyone. But as long as what you are doing is helping you feel at ease and is reducing your anxiety and stress levels, then I recommend sticking to it. Engaging in creative activities gives your brain a break from constant worry. It acts as a pause button for racing thoughts, letting the body relax. It provides emotional expression. It allows you to express feelings that might be hard to put into words. It helps release tension, frustration, or sadness safely. It boosts mood and subtly supports low feelings. Completing a creative project provides a sense of accomplishment. This can gently lift your mood and encounter feelings of hopelessness or low energy. A strategy proven to reduce anxiety. And feeling in the moment can quickly help with low moods, feeling of low moods by shifting attention away from maybe the ruminating thoughts that a person may be having. You know, um, Creative outlooks aren't just hobbies. They're a simple, enjoyable way to manage stress and anxiety while also subtly supporting mood and your overall emotional well-being. So another thing that helps reduce anxiety and stress are fidgets. Some people have to feel things in order to help calm themselves down, and fidgets are perfect for that. This little guy on the right is named Worry, and he is an aromatherapy toy that can be used by both adults and children. And this specific aromatherapy toy smells like lavender. It feels fuzzy and is squishy. There are so many different types of aromatherapy toys that can be found and used. Some kids and even adults like using the poppets, which doesn't make a lot of noise. And in these poppets, they're kind of like silent bubble wrap, and it's meant to help the user feel at ease. We have the classic stress ball, which can be used pretty much everywhere and anywhere. And then finally, we have the cube fidget, which can be used by adults and children. And each side has a different feel to it. And this one can be used pretty much everywhere as well. These are only a few fidgets, but these are so much more. There's so much more that can be found online and on store in stores. If you feel as if you are experiencing anxiety or any other issues, I encourage you to reach out to your school counselors or teachers, um, family, friends, and speak with them about what you're experiencing. And they can, either help you manage your situation or point you in the right direction for help. For your child, if they're experiencing any anxiety or stress, there's always T-chat. You can speak to your school counselor about that services, and they can offer you many more resources within your community that you can reach out to. And also speaking with your primary care physician or your child's pediatrician is also another option and resource. So this next page is just some resources in your area um, that are available if you would want to reach out if you're experiencing any type of mental health issues. That's the Nueces Center for Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities. There's the Behavioral Health Center of Nueces County. There's NAMI of Greater Corpus Christi. There's also some mobile crisis outreach hotlines. Uh, and lastly, these are some of the references that I use to put this presentation together. And, I want to say thank you for allowing me to talk to you a little bit about, anxiety and how to manage anxiety and different moods. So, I open it up to questions if anyone has any questions.
If anybody has questions after this, they can email me at mfowler@calallen.org, and I can get local resources to them if need be, and then contact with the school counselor at their child's school. So anything they need, they can get in contact with me, and I can help them navigate, you know, what they need
Mhm,
personally. So I really
mhm.
appreciate this. This was really good. With the box breathing, I found myself actually doing it and
It
relaxing
does
a little bit.
work.
It does work. It really does. And it was good to know, the symptoms of being stressed and having anxiety, and then the differences between them, and knowing that, like, we have to learn to understand what's really causing
Mhm.
the anxiety and figure that out to help us get rid of that anxiety. So I really appreciate your presentations always, but this one was really good. So I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. And, we are always happy to help out in any way we can.